This is quite clearly an organized and direct plan to take people who are partisan over independent, who are provocateurs over the experienced, and who are often people who've directly said they oppose the government, rule of law, and the agencies they would be a part of, to now take them over. You have RFK, who is not a doctor, has no public health degree, and has no relevant experience to run HHS. That would be a problem, full stop. In other words, before you get to more information, the fact that RFK would be someone who doesn't know how to fly, and you're giving him keys to the plane, and you're saying to the passengers, the country, do you want to get on that plane? Well, in that analogy, inside the United States, that would still be illegal. You can't pilot a plane of other people without a flight license, just like you can't drive without a driver's license, and this is higher stakes than that. So he doesn't have that experience, and that's before you get to all his conspiracy theories, his discredited and disproven materials, things he has said that he's been rebuked by doctors and public health experts for because it has misled people, sometimes to very deleterious effects. Or another pick that Republicans, Wall Street Journal, and others are saying they now oppose. They say it's a bad idea, but it's exactly what Trump has been promising for the last several months on the campaign trail, partisan vengeance. So when Donald Trump tapped a MAGA partisan vengeance warrior in Matt Gaetz to be attorney general, that's exactly what Trump campaigned on. That much is clear. Or a Fox News host at the Pentagon, or a conspiracy theorist to oversee intelligence. These are individuals, some of them who probably wouldn't get a security clearance if they applied for these jobs in the normal course, but they are being rammed in by Donald Trump, and he is daring Republicans and the rest of the country to push back. Republican Speaker Mike Johnson basically saying he'll try to muscle Gaetz through, that the House should not even release evidence, information that the House up to this point had said was important. In other words, it's self-canceling its own process because it's not some random external process or journalism or anything else. This is a report the House was preparing under Republican rule about its own members' ethics and alleged misconduct and drug allegations. Republicans fighting each other now over this detail over Trump's AG pick.
But, you know, these confirmation hearings, they are fairly comprehensive in terms of the vetting process that nominees go.
Well, it's my understanding that is not supposed to go public. So if it's not supposed to under the rules, it shouldn't go public.
So you want to see it?
Absolutely.
That's an early debate that is, of course, entirely of Donald Trump's own making, because he picked someone who had these outstanding ethics issues. Again, just like RFK doesn't have much medical experience here, Matt Gaetz, who is a lawyer, hasn't tried cases as a prosecutor, let alone a senior prosecutor, let alone a deputy attorney general or anything to that degree. Now he would run the whole place with no DOJ experience if he gets in. So why do you want someone for that post? Obviously, it's not the experience. Obviously, it's not their representations about being independent or nonpartisan. Quite the opposite. That he would do what even many hardcore loyalist MAGA Republican lawyers wouldn't in the past do for Trump. When people followed the rules, even though they were arch conservatives, MAGA supporters, politically supportive of Donald Trump in every public possible way, but when they followed the rules, there are rules on recusal at the DOJ because of the powers involved. The Justice Department prosecutes cases that can result in capital punishment. If you have a conflict of interest with someone who could be executed by the government, we have very strict rules about that. That's in everyone's public interest. Again, it's not a left or right thing. And it was Jeff Sessions, who was well known as a very conservative senator who became attorney general, that followed that rule that you just saw so upset Donald Trump in the first term. Ditto Bill Barr when he said facts, like Donald Trump lost the election and there was no widespread fraud that interfered with that. That was too far. That one act. It's the same version of DOJ of what politically and ultimately with a coup attempt happened with Mike Pence. That saying the words about what's true after 4 years of service was enough to have him more than attacked by Donald Trump, but his life quite physically threatened by Trump's fans. So that's the history. Again, not about policy or left and right, but just about whether you would go as far as a would-be autocrat wanted. And if you do that even one time, you're out. And so all those people are out. You heard Trump say it. I'm playing you his words. He said if he'd known that Sessions would follow those rules of fairness, he wouldn't have given him the job in the first place. He wanted someone willing to break the rules, to be unfair, quite publicly on Trump's behalf. Then take it up to intelligence, the DNI, Tulsi Gabbard. Trump spent his first term, though, feuding with intelligence officials, many of them nonpartisan, but who followed the same types of rules. And that dealt with the Russia probe. Now Trump is tapping someone who doesn't even have the experience in those relevant areas, the intelligence community, and who has oddly and repeatedly gone the other direction of all of the veterans and the people who study this to kind of seemingly coddle or side with Russian interests. Again, it's not about the facts for them. It's just about what Donald Trump wants for whatever reason he thinks that is in his personal or political interest. Then you go to the defense secretary. Now, in contrast to RFK, we should note that Pete Hegseth is a veteran, so he has that experience. He served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and many people understandably respect that. But he hasn't worked his way up in government in any way, so the service respected, but the experience that's generally needed to run something as large as the Pentagon isn't exactly there. And there are many other people, including, as Donald Trump will tell you, people who are publicly MAGA red, who do have that kind of experience. But some of them won't work for Trump anymore, like John Kelly, who warned about these autocratic tendencies before the election. Others Trump doesn't want for the reasons I just told you. They actually still follow rules. This individual has called liberals domestic enemies, exactly the kind of language that Donald Trump used on the campaign trail, which normalizes that. But this person will now be the first civilian oversight step between, if confirmed, Commander-in-Chief Trump and the generals. So when he says enemies and Trump says enemies, that's two layers above the generals arguing for the approach that could result in the misuse of the military against what they call now American enemies.
When you import the third world, you get third world hierarchy, values, and chaos. This is what the left does. They've always been, well, I won't say fascists, but yeah, fascists. Too strong? Of course not.
I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. Feels like a Putin's give me my back war. We used to have the former Soviet Union, and we're pretty proud of that. And Ukraine was a part of it, and all these other countries. And I want my back.
Those are just some of the views. And when you look at this and you understand what has been espoused here, right, that's what the vetting process is for. No one is saying, not that I've heard in Congress, and no one in serious journalism is saying that people can't have these public views and then come in and explain how they would square some of them or whether they've evolved or grown or what their obligations are through the Senate process. What's different now and what we've never seen before, and I want you to keep your eye on this in the weeks ahead, is the president has already said, the president-elect, Donald Trump, that he thinks he can ram all these people in without the Senate. And parts of the Senate, we're going to watch this debate among Republicans, are ready to go along with that. So one of the first checks against someone like that, who would be the first person talking to Donald Trump about using the military or considering nuclear plans or any number of very real things that the Pentagon chief does, may not even be subject to meaningful Senate vetting under oath, let alone confirmation hearings. I say that because I just told you what they're doing in trying to bury the ethics probe of a different official. They're not going forward and claiming to even do the vetting. Hegseth, also the Pentagon nominee, has talked about the kind of political purging of generals that the Trump transition team is floating in trial balloon leaks about what they might want to take on as new unitary powers for Trump and Trump alone.
You got to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. I mean, obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever, that was involved in any of the DEI woke, it's got to go.
The point here isn't whether they disagree with generals about certain things. He's talking about his allegation that they're too, quote, woke. The point is actually much deeper than that. This is someone who's on record publicly saying he wants to do that thing, purge the generals. Trump wants to do that thing, purge the generals. Conservative, long-standing generals from the first term said they heard Trump talk about that he wanted autocratic generals. This is all happening. And if there are people on Wall Street who think this is just about tax cuts, well, they're going to learn quickly it's about a heck of a lot more than that to the people in charge. Donald Trump wants that control over the Pentagon. And again, the history is instructive. When he had a different Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, who spoke out about how Trump wanted to misuse troops, which, again, in any society, the first point of abuse is usually the use of force. That's by the military or the police forces. General Milley warned that Trump was the most dangerous person to this country and a, quote, fascist to the core. He told Bob Woodward that as a kind of pre-election warning. Esper and Trump's chief of staff, Kelly, who I mentioned, have been very clear about that. And so before you listen to this, keep in mind, this is no longer campaign rhetoric. We had an election. The people voted. Hillary Clinton got a larger share of the total vote, a larger margin in 2016 than Trump has right now. But he got about a 2-point margin, and he won through the swing states. So he is the president-elect lawfully. So put the politics to the side if that's how some people have heard it, and understand these were warnings about substance, about governance, about what the next 4 years could be like. And they were clear warnings of what we're seeing this week. That Donald Trump, of sound mind and body as a public official, literally called for getting Hitler-style generals. He is now president-elect of the United States. He has picked his team, his military team, his top Pentagon nominee is someone who quite clearly wants to carry out this plan. Purge the generals, get rid of the ones you disagree with, put in the loyalists, so you start there with that type of power. It's not a drill, and it's no longer something you can put in the prism of campaign politics. We're 2 years out plus from another campaign. These are warnings about what's actually happening, who's in place, and whether the Senate and the other powers that be in this country will do anything about it.